How do you handle rejection from a fellow witch that refuses to do a reading or a spell for you? I don't reach out to other people to do things for me. There have been times someone's wanted to, and I've cherished the fact that they have wanted to give of their energy and time. But I don't think I've ever reached out to anyone that I didn't already know was with me on a quest. So I don't think I've encountered rejection from somebody that refuses to do a reading or a spell for me. The first thing is, I don't look to readings or spells. I absolutely do not look for spells on my behalf from others. Thank you very much. I'm a witch. I take care of my own business. So it's not something I've looked to for others. But readings, I've never been refused a reading by anyone because I've only ever been involved with someone reading for me when we've kind of come to that place together where we want to, it's a partnership. So there's no asking of or feeling it's a service or a return. It's just some natural conclusion we've come to that we want to read for each other. Do you think it's necessary to cast a circle when you do spell work or any magical working? I have to say yes and no to that. To me, casting is something as simple as standing silent and knowing you're the center of the universe in that moment. Or it's a ritual with a certain progression of things that you do. So casting a circle to me, at the most simple level, no matter the steps we take to do it, means declaring this time, this space, and myself within that, set aside, separate from, and holding the power of some intent that I have given it. If Steven Spielberg called and wanted to make a movie of your life, would you want to play as you? Of course I would. Nobody would come to see the movie. It'd be boring as all hell. Why would Steven want to live my life or record my life? I have no idea. But I wouldn't want anybody else to play me. What is some advice that was given to you that you pass along because it made impact on your path? Ask anyone who has been spending over a year with me in their Season of the Seeker studies. And that would be, your teachers share things with you. Your teachers might even tell you things from their perspective of truth. But always, and Seekers, are you chanting it with me? You make of it what you will. And the thing is, it wasn't one person that told me that. It's every good teacher, every excellent mentor I've ever had. What is some advice you would give someone who has not found their deity? Time. In time. And don't hesitate to declare one. And to put it out there. And to go for it. And learn everything you can about it. You might be someone who is overwhelmed in the moment, opening up to some great possibility of the mysterious divine. But for instance, go in search of a matron or a patron instead. Kind of like what I did when I went into my studies of Hestia and Parvati and Kuan Yin, is establish a relationship, do your research, come up with your own story that connects you to an archetype. The deeper we connect to those archetypes, the more we see behind them, we feel behind them, and we come to some sense of the mystery, the collective hugeness behind any one of them. Then we start understanding that we often don't put a name on a god or a goddess. It's the one we personally honor that influence us the most. It's instead the moments that we connect to something that's outside, bigger than, more beautiful than, the specifics of the story we tell about deities to ourselves. We get these sparks of, we don't have to name it, we don't have to define it, but it's just some sense of knowing something greater is out there. Where do you buy your herbs? Wherever I can get them the cheapest. And I'm looking for natural ingredients. I've changed my practice very much in the last decade, honoring that so many of the things that we have come to like when it comes to incense and oils are endangered species. So I go on a search when it comes to where I buy things. How did you feel casting your first circle? Silly, scared, stumbling, etc. I had the good fortune of having my brothers and sisters in my first circle surrounding me through the steps of a lot of my early experiments. I knew I couldn't fail. I knew I couldn't do anything wrong. Oh, I could stumble in the sense of forget words, or move the wrong direction, or hold the wrong tool, or forget whether I was doing an invoking or a banishing pentagram, you name it. But I had such a loving environment to learn in that basically was, you'll make no mistakes. Your gods know your intent. It's just because of that. Not because I had some wisdom myself that that was the situation, but because I was raised up with that it's okay. No matter what, it's okay, and it's perfect, and it is as it was meant to be. Another spell question. I thought we had this earlier. What was your first successful spell? I don't talk about spells, but I think my first successful spell was the result of understanding what spelling was, what a working was, what you put into it, what your expectations of it were at an energetic and magical and spiritual level. It's like a light bulb clicked on inside my head, and that's probably the first time I had a feeling of connection to the work I was doing. What's your general practice for meditation? Looking at a candle is number one for me. When I have migraine times, I tend to be prone to them because I have lupus and tend to get migraines. Then it's being outside in the stillness at night, or watching the sun come up, something that takes me outside of my body and any pain or discomfort I'm feeling. Music takes me there. Rhythm, gentle rhythm, takes me there. Lots of different things according to the moment. Are you a day walker? Are you a day walker or a night comer? Well now, I guess I'm just an old witch that's not part of the cool kids gang, because I have no idea what either one of those two things mean. I don't mind admitting that. Teach me, youngins. If it means do you prefer working in the day or at night, it's like saying do you prefer the sun or the moon? I can't answer that question. I thrive in both environments. How and when did you know you wanted to be on this path? Well now, I guess I really, in a sense, never did. Because I had been taught early on that our entire life's already a path, and we just experience the length of it. So it's not a matter of deciding to be on it. We're on it, whether we kind of like it or not. However, there was a specific moment in my life when the path that included the honoring of God and Goddess was very much the call to this is what I needed. It literally saved my life. I had been involved in forms of goddess spirituality, and they began to feel as limiting as the God-centered spirituality of my youth. And when I had my first opportunity to be present to the combined energy of the male and female divine, that brought me to a sense of that turning, that crossroads, decision or way forward in my path. And I know how much it influenced the length of my life after that. What type of pagan are you? Wiccan, eclectic, hedge, etc. I tend to consider myself, not because I've seen it as a label somebody else has used that I can agree with, but for myself I say contemporary Wiccan, and I mean by that that I am highly, highly influenced by the experience of traditional Wicca when I was in my 20s and early 30s, and it's been what I've made of it since then. That's why the contemporary gets added to that. I don't pretend to represent current evolutions of traditional Wiccan practice. I just represent myself and what came out of that for myself. What candle color do you use the most? I tend to work with elemental colors because I tend to work from the perspective of elements, specific elements or combinations of elements in my workings. But whether I indeed have a yellow candle for air doesn't matter. any candle becomes a yellow candle when I'm working with it. If I don't have a yellow one, a white one is a yellow one, if you know what I mean. What area would you like to see your craft grow in? May have mentioned this earlier. The exploration of not only the reflective and contemplative aspects of working as a solitary, but how you can skillfully put yourself in contact with external energies, not just of the world around you, but of those who are practicing like you are. The sense of community outside of physical community, energetic community, working perhaps with community at the Akashic, the etheric level. An experience of the expanse of what being a solitary means. What's your preference to buy or make your tools? I mentioned earlier, I'm not a crafty witch. I really, except for picking up a stick and making it a wand with intent, I don't make my tools. I've just stumbled upon them here and there. Whether it's a saucer from the kitchen that's my patent in the moment, it doesn't matter how I stumble upon it, but I've actually not been one who physically made my tools. What fictional witch book screen inspired you the most? First thing is, I haven't really done a lot of fictional witch reading or fictional movie watching. Practical Magic is really the only witchy type movie I've ever watched that I liked, which doesn't say a lot in the sense I haven't watched a lot of them. A lot of you can, rattle off lists and lists. I can't. But the thing that moved me about that was the consideration of consequences and energy sent, energy returned, and also the power of coming together to make manifest. So those things resonated deeply with me from watching that movie. Was your first spell alone or in a coven? I think while training with my first coven, we were sent off to do baby spells. At the time, we might not have realized we were doing spells. We thought of them as focuses, and came to understand later that we had been learning how to work magic. The most powerful things early on, though, were all coven-centered to me because I came up in a community environment where the work that you did was in the times you came together as a group. A little different than a lot of you experiencing. What's your favorite candle, incense, or scent for magical purposes? It might sound kind of strange, but a consistent, way clearer, mind expander, opening up to possibility scent for me has always been camphor. I mix it in with a lot of things. Camphor alone isn't something I make as an offering. I use it to increase the wider influence of another scent that I'm working with. Where's your favorite place to go to reconnect with nature? I'm very lucky at this point in my life. Where we live now, I moved 2.5 years ago. We moved from the suburbs outside a city out into the country at the edge of the ocean. I don't have to reconnect. I am in it and glorying in it every day. A few steps down the hill from me, I sit at the edge of a bay. A very short drive, I am sitting at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. I live in the woods where I can be outside every night. I'll be out tonight looking at the moon, what's left of the blue moon tonight, shining through old growth pine trees. It's just, I don't have to go in search of at this point in my life. Oh, I do love where I live. Do you believe in fantasy creatures, unicorns, gnomes, elves, fairies, etc.? I don't know if a creature is a real, tangible aspect of our imagination. I don't think we could call it a fantasy creature. Do you believe in ghosts or spirits? I don't believe, let's just say, better phrase, I have not experienced ghosts as haunting presence from the past. I have had many encounters with personalities and entities that I can't describe that are present in this world but not of it. Something as specific as I lived in a house once that had what someone else would call a ghost of a young man. It wasn't a ghost to me. It was a young boy who lived in the house a couple hundred years before I had, and it felt that there were times at which time became one and the same, and we shared time together. So not ghosts in the sense of something left undone or emotions captured in some kind of a time continuum, so much as all my experiences of anything that might be considered unexplained energy aligned to someone who's existed has been the feeling of more than one time happening at the same time. And that take on it has worked well for me. It allowed me to explore things when they happened with very little fear, more like curiosity entered the picture than concern. Would you ever teach the craft? I have been teaching the craft since the middle of the 1970s. I am teaching it to this very day. And by the craft, I don't teach how to do things. I hope I teach or influence or guide or suggest the possibility to students how to make their own way forward and create their own craft. When the first decade of my practice, when I was teaching very specifically within a tradition, I was teaching a craft then. I was teaching what is and was meant to be handed on. But that's not been the last, 30 years, no, 25 years or so of my life, where I have taught in a sense of wanting to pass on possibility and not specific crafts.